Are you looking to support your laying hens? Maybe you're looking to cut feed costs or even just get your hens to start laying at all. Welcome to Home and Haven Farms. My name is Brittany, and today we are going to be discussing ways that you can support your laying hens. We are going to be discussing free options. We are going to be discussing things that you can invest in, and we will also be talking about things that you should not feed your chicken. So stick around to the end of the video so that you don't miss any juicy nuggets or eggs. All right, so before we get into the nitty-gritty details, for all my pun lovers out there, we need to first discuss your laying hen and when she's expected to lay eggs. And we also need to discuss, like, what nutrition does she need in order to begin laying. All right, so first things first, your hen should start laying between 18 and 22 weeks of life. Unless they are spring layers and they mature and it's still winter for you, they will wait to lay until springtime. So that's about 5 to 6 months, depending on the hen. You know, there are some breeds who lay earlier. There may even be breeds who start laying later. Either way, that is when you can expect to begin receiving eggs from your hen, so long as she has as much protein as she needs, as much nutrition as she needs, and calcium. So your hen, if we went to a feed store, and we're going to talk about this in our first point, if you went to a feed store, most blends that you can buy in a bag will have between 16 and maybe 18% of protein for layer blends. While that does work, and I'm not a chicken expert, I would consider that to be low. I believe that, based on my own research, of course, do your own research. Based on my own research, I really think that at least between 20 and 22% is a good range for your hen to have everything that she needs to begin producing wonderful eggs for you. This is not the most flattering background, but if you guys want to know what we're doing with our home, go ahead and check out our intro video. So the next thing that I want to discuss is feed. I had just mentioned in the point before that hens need anywhere between 16 to 22% protein in order to lay good eggs. I also want to mention that higher protein number is really for hens that are kind of in their prime and at a good age for laying. Older hens might not need that much protein. But as far as feed goes, if you go to any average feed store, you're gonna find protein blends ranging from like 16 maybe to 18%. You may be able to get higher blends. We're gonna go ahead and discuss co-ops. Co-ops are a wonderful option for some people. Number one, if they're even around you. Number two, if you're buying in bulk. And number three, because you can get custom feed blends. We actually started feeding our own hens. They began laying on pig feed. We raise pigs over here, so if you're interested in any videos like that, go ahead and check out those videos on our channel. But most of pig feed is actually ground corn and scratch grains and seeds and nuts. And at a co-op, you may be able to pick and choose what kinds of proteins and nutrition you want in your feed, as well as the ratio of protein. It's a good option for people who are wanting to cut costs and have a basic feed that is hopefully better than a pre-blended one at a store. And then the last point that I want to make on feed is that you can actually ferment your feed. I don't have a video on that yet, but go ahead and look into it. It's a way that you can increase the nutrition in the feed that you are feeding your hens. It's a way that you can stretch out food because it fills your hens up for longer. And it also makes it a lot easier on your hen to digest those things if you ferment them first. Sorry if it's really windy, everybody. So free ranging is probably the best way for your hens to get what they need, and foraging around. before people ever got involved with getting clever to produce a lot of meat and eggs, chickens just foraged around in the wild on their own, and they didn't need people to give them a house. They didn't need people to protect them. That's why they have a lot of eggs, and that's why they have big clutches of them. And chickens and hens, they will do what they do best just out in nature. But I understand that that's not always an option. Something that we're going to be doing with our own laying hens is we are actually going to be getting a poultry net to kind of give them an enclosure. That way our hens can forage around, but we can still move them to fresh ground if needed. So yeah, if you are able to get poultry net and see if you can move your hens or chickens to fresh ground. But foraging is something that is totally free and doesn't cost you a cent, and it's probably the best thing for your hen. Okay, so if you're limited on space or how much your chickens can forage around, one of the things that you can do is create forage for them. And one of the ways you can do that, I brought you guys over here, obviously I have the tripod, but I brought you guys over here to a wood pile that we have. We have a wood burning stove, and we have a lot of wood split and ready to go, but this is the stuff that isn't. And as these logs sit on the top of the surface of the earth and it rains, it basically creates the perfect environment for insects, worms. You can do the exact same thing with cardboard in a muddy spot. You go lay down a sheet of cardboard, you put down some rocks to weigh things down, and then you wait for it to rain. And after it rains, a lot of the worms will come up to the surface, and that is one way that your hens and your chickens can get free food. So I wanted to show you guys, my chicken ran off, but if I lift up one of these logs, that was a really poor example. But if I lift up one of these logs in a muddier spot, we have tons of roly-polies. I don't know the actual name of them, so I'm going to sound like a kid when I say it. Oh, shoot. Haha. That is free chicken food for you guys. So if you are limited on space or the amount of space that your hens can have foraging, free food is an option. You just have to kind of know how to cultivate it and, yeah, allow your chickens to eat it. Vermiculture is another thing, or wormiculture, as I like to call it. And it's essentially worm farming, and you get tons of them, and that's plenty of extra food to supplement hens. So it might be hard to tell over here because it keeps weathering away, but similarly to our log method and the cardboard method that I discussed with you guys just a moment ago, you can also make a compost pile. Now this is more of, I was working on kind of a lasagna style bed so that I can make some nice soil here to grow something, but that's probably not going to work. And it's also a perfect place to cultivate insect life and organic matter and all sorts of things that your hens can scratch through and get nutrition from. All of this was a very thick layer, but I let it overwinter. And this is something where if you turn it over, your hens and chickens, let me see if this will be a good example. I'm going to try to get some of this turned over and see if my girls go nuts over it. Oh, we got some roly-polies in there. Under this pile, though, is plenty of organic matter and organic life that your hens could scratch through and eat up. And all of that, they would turn into nutritious and delicious eggs. Whoops. Oh, Lucy's coming. No, she's not. She walked away. Oh, yeah. I gave up on that one and I started walking away and the girls came right over, you guys. So that is a little pile I dug up from our lasagna beds. So one of the most obvious things that is always talked about are feeding table scraps. I have some old celery in here, some apple cores, some of my daughter's leftover oatmeal from this morning. It has hemp seeds. Hemp seeds are wonderful for hens. But table scraps, you're already going to be throwing food away, okay? Unless you live outside of the United States, most of us have excess food, and your hens and chickens can benefit from all of it. Hi, Luce. She's just over here sitting. He was waiting so patiently. Hey, Luce. And stuff like this is why our hens don't eat the feed most of the time. Things are really starting to green up. Here come the rest of the ladies. Things are starting to green up over here. And they're not going to have any interest in feed because they are going to be overloaded with bugs, especially if y'all live anywhere like the country. You're going to have plenty of forage for your hens and your chickens. Another thing that I don't have included here that I wanted to discuss is meat. Now, chicken specifically, you want to avoid feeding to your hens and chickens because sometimes that can bring about disease or illness. But meat is another wonderful way that you can supplement your hens. It's high in protein. I'm going to do the best that I can. The sun is beaming me in the face. But meat is high in protein, and there are plenty of areas in the world that keep chickens and do not have a lot of produce. So they often give meat to their birds. It's an excellent source of protein. So something that we like to say here at Home and Haven Farms is that small solutions make a big impact. And the next things that I mention for your hens are just that. These things are not bulky things that are going to make them feel full or anything. These are little things that are going to help them as they lay eggs. It's going to give them all the nutrition that they need to have for their bodies to make good eggs for you guys and also be well enough to make more. And yeah, so we're going to get into those. Apple cider vinegar, I want to say raw, unfiltered, and with the mother in it, unpasteurized too. Raw apple cider vinegar is an incredibly powerful ally for your hens. It is a natural probiotic and it also keeps parasites away. So with this, honestly, I just lace it in their water, just a tiny little bit, 2 times a week or so. Sometimes I also splash their table scraps with this stuff, as well as the next things that I'm going to mention. Food grade diatomaceous earth is another one that you can give your hens to support their bodies. This is not the brand that I would usually choose, but it's what they had, so I got it. Not my first choice though. Diatomaceous earth is great also, similarly to apple cider vinegar. It is an anti-parasitic. Your apple cider vinegar will do a similar thing. It will just help support their gut, and any parasites can be flushed out. Any worms can be flushed out. Same thing with diatomaceous earth. It's also very good for getting rid of mites. It's great to blend into their feed, and there's lots of silica in it. And that silica makes sure that your hen has everything that she needs in her own skeleton to produce eggs, because laying hens specifically, especially the older that they get, they take that calcium that is in that shell and they take it from their own body. So it's important to give your hen everything that she needs to live a long, happy, healthy life, because the more that she feels good, the more eggs she'll give you. Speaking of eggshells, that is another thing that you can supplement your hens with. I don't do this a whole lot except in winter, because in winter there's a lot less insects, but usually if I'm making a quiche or a dinner or a meal with a bunch of eggs, I'll just fire up the oven, bake them, And then I'll hook my youngest daughter, Ostara, up with a bowl and a masher, and she's the one who crushed all these. So, yeah, my little helper. And all I do is a couple of times a week, I just sprinkle these amongst whatever I'm feeding them, and they gobble it up. And it's a good way to recycle that calcium from their body and put it right back in their body. So that's another option. Very small, but calcium is really important for our hens to do what they need to do and to live healthy. Yeah. And this is the last tiny thing that I chose. There's plenty of healthy little things that you can give your hens. Garlic's another anti-parasitic. It's good for them. You can give them oregano, all sorts of stuff. But I also chose bentonite clay. I'm almost out. I gotta refill it. We have quite a lot. I just haven't refilled my jar yet. I use this for everything, including my hens. Bentonite clay is full of loads of minerals. We all need minerals, and your hens are no different. And I use this exactly the same way as I do the diatomaceous earth. With the feed bucket that I do use, I just blend in a little bit, and I stir it up, and I give it a shake, and I use a little bit of this with it, and I just mix it all up in one go. Most of the time, my hens don't actually eat the feed unless it is winter and there's snow all over the ground. They don't really like to be in the snow. So they really just like to eat the feed in the winter if there is snow all over, or if it's been raining for like 2 days straight and they don't want to go forage in the rain. So then they'll stick close to the house or close to their area where they will just kind of eat whatever I give them. Alright, so the last thing that I wanted to discuss were some things that you shouldn't feed your hens and chickens. And I also want to start things off by saying I kind of think that our hens know most of the time. I'm not saying every hen is smart, but I think they kind of have a sense of understanding of what they should eat, what feels good going in, and what doesn't. And I'll tell you why. Because onions is on that list of things to not feed chicken, or hens, I should say. Some people say that it changes up the yolk flavor, but honestly, my hens, I've tried feeding them onions. I'm like, hey, here, and they don't want it. So, so onions is on that list. Apparently, it just has something that can change the yolk, but also irritate the hen's ability to absorb nutrition. So I think it depletes them in something, but honestly, well, my hens haven't eaten onions here, so we have no experience with that. Dry beans are on the list of things to not feed your hens. So I think this relates to the phytates in the digestion process, but we shouldn't eat dry beans. But for a chicken, that could kill it. So just make sure to cook your beans and your hens will gobble them up. And even still, I say they'll gobble them up. They will if they're hungry. But beans are something, even cooked, that my hens will come to last. That's another good point that I wanted to mention when I was giving our hens our table scraps for the day, is that whatever they don't eat will also draw in insects. So even if your hens don't eat it in a day or two, they will eventually, because there will be insects there, and that is exactly what your chicken wants to eat. And another thing that you don't want to feed your hens is raw potato. Some people avoid the nightshade family altogether with their hens, but my hens have had no problem digesting tomatoes. They don't really care for the tomato leaves, but as far as potatoes, just to make sure that you don't accidentally poison your hen, make sure that if you feed potatoes, they are cooked all the way through. But noodles are great. Bread is okay for your hens. Your hens like those carbs. Your hens like those delicious things that you eat too. And they don't even have the tasty receptors to receive spicy foods or really strong flavors like garlic or cayenne pepper or apple cider vinegar. So those things are good for your hen too, and will help support her body as she makes you eggs, and it will keep her healthy making eggs. We talked about feed, the protein percentage that would be good for a hen. We talked about stretching feed, where to get decent prices and selections of feed. We talked about table scraps. We talked about letting your hens forage. We talked about creating your own forage. Another thing you can create is fodder. That is one that you would need to invest in. And it's kind of like growing your own nutritional grass for your hens. We don't bother with that because we get plenty of grass and they get lots of nutrition. We also talked about compost and how that could be one way. Having a compost bin, I don't know if I said that much on it because I was distracted with my girls, but having a compost bin and just letting your hens scratch, they will get a lot of the protein out of it. And if you turn it over and you flip it, they'll get everything at the bottom as well. So composting is a good method to feed your hens. We also talked about little things that you can do to supplement your hens but make a big nutritional impact. We talked about diatomaceous earth, bentonite clay, apple cider vinegar. We also talked about eggshells. And then I had also mentioned hemp seed. Hemp seed is a premium item for sure. And I don't have my bag out here with me, but we get a big old bag of hemp seeds. And if you just give them a decent handful, depending on how many hens, you might need more handfuls or more. But if you just give them some hemp seed a couple times a week, that's gonna up their nutrition. So that's another wonderful thing that you can do to supplement your hens. Something I forgot to talk about were oats. I had mentioned oatmeal in our forage, or not our forage, in our food scraps. And oats are a wonderful way for hens to get all sorts of nutrition. So magnesium, phosphorus, I think zinc is in there. But oats are a wonderful way that you can supplement your hens. We also discussed how you should not feed your hens onions, or you should avoid it or research it yourself. Research. Also, dry beans. Don't do that because that could kill them. You shouldn't even be eating dry beans. Soak those babies and cook them well. We also talked about how we should avoid raw potatoes, so cook those very well too if you are going to feed them to your hens. Greens are great to feed to your hens and supplement. They will eat grass. If you go to dispatch a meat chicken, they're full of grass. They eat that too. So if you can't grow your own grass and your chickens are in a very tight space, you could invest in hay, but it is another cost, so something to consider. But these are some ways that you guys can best support your hens and get them to start producing wonderful, wonderful eggs. In fact, our hens, with free ranging most of the time and foraging around, it's kind of a pain in the butt to crack the eggs because the shells are so hard. So I think I covered everything that I wanted to talk about. Thank you guys so much for following along. Consider subscribing if you guys liked this video and want to see more to come. Consider liking this video because it boosts us up in the algorithms, and we are trying to make an impact in this world, and your effort helps. So thank you guys so much and have a wonderful day. We'll see y'all next time.